Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, respected special guest, today's chair of the session, Director General of BIISS, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International Strategic Studies, may I welcome you all to today's seminar on Bangladesh's climate resilience and financing, challenges, opportunities, and way forward. We are very much honored to have among us Nahim Razzak MP, Convener, Climate Parliament Bangladesh, and member, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Foreign Affairs as today's chief guest. We are also delighted to have the presence of today's special guest, Dr. Ainun Nishad, Professor Emeritus, BRAC University. Distinguished guest, in today's program, at the outset, Major General Muhammad Abu Bakr Siddiq Khan, Director General BIISS, will deliver his welcome address. This will be followed by three presentations from three eminent persons: Dr. Sufia Khanam, Senior Research Fellow of BIISS, Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi Ahsan, Country Representative of IUCN and General Secretary of Bangladesh Institute of Planners, and Dr. Muhammad Abu Yusuf, Additional Secretary, Finance Division, Ministry of Finance. Then the floor will be open for open discussion. Dear audience, you can also take part in the open discussion session. You have to write down your name and submit it to our representatives if you would like to participate in the open discussion. Following the open discussion session, today's special guest will make his insightful remarks. Thereafter, the Honorable Chief Guest will deliver his invaluable speech. Finally, today's chair of the session, Ambassador AFM Gausul Azam Sarkar, Chairman BIISS, will make the concluding remarks, followed by exchange of memento, photo session, and lunch. May I now request the chair of the session to kindly commence the program. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Nahim Razzak MP, Convener, Climate Parliament Bangladesh, Member, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Ainun Nishad, Professor Emeritus, BRAC University, Major General Muhammad Abu Bakr Siddiq Khan, Director General, BIISS, learned speakers, presenters, excellencies, distinguished guests, including media friends, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. At today's seminar on Bangladesh's climate resilience and financing, challenges, opportunities, and way forward, we are greatly honored to have Honorable Nahim Razzak MP, Convener, Climate Parliament Bangladesh, and we are also honored to have Dr. Ainun Nishad, Professor Emeritus, BRAC University, as the special guest. And from the master of the ceremony, you have got the names of the distinguished presenters and speakers today. In fact, we all know that Bangladesh continues to be one of the most climate vulnerable countries, and climate change has come as existential threat to it. So the need for adaptation and mitigation is urgent and huge. And today's seminar, therefore, is going to not only discuss the criticality of the subject, but also shed light on the financing, its application, diverse sources of financing, and innovative approach to climate change and the projects undertaken and to be undertaken for that. And also to share best practices of other countries. In this seminar, we are looking forward to hearing from the learned panelists and also the participants from the floor. So therefore, to begin, I'd like to request the Director General to make his welcome address. Major General Siddiq Khan, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected Chief Guest, Mr. Nahim Razak MP, Honorable Member of Standing Committee on Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Jatiya Samsad, Special Guest, Dr. Ainun Nishad, Professor Emeritus, Breck University, respected Chairman, BIISS, Ambassador AFM Gausul Azam Sarkar, learned audience, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to you all. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, I welcome you all to today's seminar on climate resilience and finance, challenges and way forward for Bangladesh. Our heartfelt gratitude to respected Chief Guest for gracing this occasion with his kind presence. At the very outset, I would like to pay my solemn reverence to the memory of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the main architect of our independence. I'd also like to pay my tribute to all the martyrs and the freedom fighters who made their supreme sacrifices for the liberation of our motherland. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to discuss an issue of paramount importance, that is climate resilience and finance. As we all know, climate change is not a distant threat, but a reality affecting nations worldwide. Bangladesh is particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, making this topic not only timely, but crucial. Vulnerability of Bangladesh to climate change is very high. Our nation faces frequent natural disasters, cyclones, flood, and rising of sea levels. These events not only disrupt the lives of millions, but also inflict severe damage on our economy, infrastructure, and natural resources. The need for climate resilience is urgent, and it requires both immediate action and long-term strategies. Dear audience, one of the primary challenges we face in climate finance is building climate resilience demands significant investment in infrastructure, technology, and community programs. However, resources available are often limited. The global climate finance landscape is also very complex, with funds from various sources like international donors, development banks, and private sectors. Efficient utilization of these funds is a challenge that we must overcome. Moreover, there is a need for innovative financial mechanisms tailored to our specific context. Traditional financing models may not always be adequate to address the unique challenges posed by the climate change in Bangladesh. We need to explore various options that can provide sustainable and scalable solutions. Dear participants, effective climate resilience requires coordinated efforts across different sectors and levels of government. Strengthening our institutional frameworks and ensuring robust policy implementation are essential steps. This includes improving data collection, monitoring, and evaluation systems to track progress and make informed decisions. The people of Bangladesh, particularly those in vulnerable regions, must be at the heart of our climate resilience programs. Building local capacity, raising awareness, and fostering community-led initiatives can significantly enhance resilience. Distinguished guests, we must prioritize the integration of climate resilience into national development plans. This requires a holistic approach, considering climate impacts in all sectors. By mainstreaming climate resilience, we can ensure our development efforts are sustainable. We need to strengthen our capacity to attract and manage international climate funds effectively. This includes developing robust project initiatives, improving financial management systems, and ensuring transparency and accountability in fund utilization. We must invest in research and development to find context-specific solutions that can mitigate climate risks. This includes promoting climate-smart agriculture, renewable energy, and resilient infrastructure. Climate change is a global challenge that requires collective action. Bangladesh must continue to actively engage in international forums, advocate for fair climate policies, and seek technical and financial support from the global community. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, building climate resilience in Bangladesh is a formidable task, but it is not impossible one. By addressing the financial challenges, strengthening governance, empowering communities, and fostering innovation, we can pave the way for a resilient and sustainable future. Let us work together to safeguard our nation and our people from the adverse impacts of climate change. Finally, again, I express my gratitude to the respected chief guest, special guests, distinguished panelists, media representatives, and the learned audience for encouraging us with your kind presence. Thank you. Joy Bangla, Bangladesh Chirojibi Ho.
Thank you, Director General, for your welcoming speech. Now we will be requesting the three presenters to make their presentation. The first, I'm requesting Dr. Sufia Khanum to come to the podium.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Chief Guest, Honorable Special Guest, respected Chair of the session, fellow panelists, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Today I'm going to present on financing for climate resilience issues and context for Bangladesh. So, before getting into the main discussion, let me define some of the concepts that has been mentioned in the title, that is, what is climate resilience? What do we mean by climate resilience? Climate resilience means being able to adapt, prepare for, and effectively respond to natural hazards caused by climate change. And resilience means the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from the difficult life event. So if you see the stages of the climate resilience, you will see that one person starts with the threshold level, then he passes coping, then he tries to recover the situation, then he tries to adapt, and then the transformative. He or she wants to change the condition and even wants to do the better things for his or her living in this stressed environmental condition. And then what is climate finance? Climate finance refers to the financial resources that are allocated towards project, initiatives, and investment aimed at mitigating and adapting to climate change. And this also include financing for such as renewable energy projects, energy efficiencies, improvements, climate resilience, infrastructure, carbon capture, and storage initiatives, afforestation, reforestation, etc., this type of initiatives. And these are some of the key components of climate resilience. This is mitigation, adaptation, capacity building, technical assistance, technology transfer and innovation finance, and financial mechanisms and instruments. And these are some of the, and in doing so, we need lot of financial flow and financial lot of sources to implement this type of activities. So these are some of the sources of the financial for the climate finance, including that these public funds and then the private investment. There are a lot of multi-level development banks and bilateral aids, international climate funds, carbon markets, and climate bonds. There are various types of climate bonds available. And there are some of the philanthropic organization, which is also, contribute to the climate financing or the activities which is very much connected with the climate actions. And these are some of the financial mechanisms and funds which has been approved by different types of convention and different types of discussion after different types of discussions and debates. And these are the Global Environmental Facility, Green Climate Fund, and Special Climate Change Fund, Least Development Countries Fund, Adaptation Fund, CVF, and V20, like Vulnerable 20 Multi-Donor Fund. And in recent times, we all know that in COP27, loss and damage fund also has been formulated, and still the mechanism have not been developed fully. So this type of financial mechanisms is very much available for the climate vulnerable countries in the world. And these are some of the key vulnerable areas that where we need actually the climate financing or the finance or the financial flow that has been identified by the National Adaptation Plan, like water, food security, infrastructure, livelihoods, ecosystem, health, and biodiversity. And as we all know that the current annual loss to GDP is about 1.3% to climate disaster, and it may rise up to 2% by 2050, and it will over 9% by 2050. And the internal migration will be huge. It has been estimated that about 19.1 million people will be migrated internally by 2050. And besides this vulnerability, Bangladesh is not only a vulnerable country, and I think Bangladesh is not now merely a vulnerable country. Rather, we can define it that Bangladesh has been transformed it into a resilient, prosperous Bangladesh, and the country has formulated its own strategy and action plans, various types of action plan to combat the climate impacts. And as I said, that Bangladesh is not only a vulnerable country, but it has taken different types of actions to be resilient. And among them, there are 6 national adaptation goals that has been identified by the National Adaptation Plan document, and which has 23 broad scale strategies. And among them, 28 outcomes encompassing diverse aspects of safeguard. And as I mentioned earlier, that the 11 climate stress areas in devising 113 interventions already, which is very much aligned with our SDG goals. And with this intervention, like 113 intervention, 52 climate adaptation projects, which is very much aligned with also our Delta plan as well. And for this 113 interventions, we need total investment of 230 billion for 27 years, and about $8.5 billion per year. And within this $8.5 billion, $6.5 billion per year should come from the external sources, that we have to depend on these external sources. And there are also some private sector investment potential is estimated to be 5.1% of the total investment at an annual rate of 0.42 billion. And these are some of the expected investment allocation, which has been estimated in the Muji Prosperity Plan, that in which that the adaptation is about 61%, can be, any organization, any development fund, any donor organization can invest. And for the resilience, it is about 20%, 25%. And for low carbon and co-benefits, it's around 11%. And then loss and damage fund around 3%. So in this aspect that we can invest, that some of the donor organization or the external financial sources can be interested in that sectors. And if you see this table, you will find out that within the South Asian countries, India is actually receiving most of the fund for mitigation, and Bangladesh is receiving most of the funds regarding the adaptation fund. And from different types of study, we can assume that if there is regional collaboration in the energy for the energy security, we can actually achieve more than this type of investment. And there is a huge scope of regional cooperation regarding the energy cooperation, renewable energy cooperation. And these are, as I'm discussing about various types of financial mechanisms, so GCF is another different types of avenue that we can venture. The GCF portfolio for Bangladesh, if I describe it, about 9 projects have been approved so far and have received almost 441.2 million USD. And then again, there are about 8 readiness activities with the approved of support of 6.1 million $1 million, and among them $5.4 million has been disbursed already. And there are another type of fund is also initiated some of the NGOs, like the Climate Breeze Fund is a trust fund established by BRAC in November 2019. I'm mentioning her one because I got this type of example from the open sources. So I know that there are a lot of other Climate Breeze Fund or small scale fund is there. And the support from, and this fund actually has been formulated with the support from the German government through one of the bank like KfW. And the fund supports the small scale projects. If this project is successful, it will be implemented in various African countries, those who are very much vulnerable, climate vulnerable like us. And then again, according to the Mujib Prosperity Plan, they have identified some of the areas where we need some type of investment from the other sources. And these are accelerated adaptation, which is about 37.90 million. And just transition of labor and future-proofing industry with technology transfer, which needs actually 11.60%. And if you see that there are other sectors like increasing public revenue to spend on the most vulnerable, comprehensive climate disaster financing and management, and technology for well-being. And there are other estimated investment need for renewable energy, energy efficiency, power, and transport sector. And these are some of the, the funding options for Bangladesh, which is Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund, and some of the other funds like GEF and GCF. And there are some features like some are grants and some are both in feature, like both can be grant and can be taken as a loan. And there are some of the, and these funds have the risk mitigation instrument and have the inclusivity and the equity options is there. And only the trust fund is a grant, and which is actually which government actually allocate for different types of ministries and departments. And the other funds is very much connected with the donor organization. Some have the direct access, like the GEF funded has the direct access to the donor organization, and GCF fund, which has the indirect access to this funded, like they can come to the government or the other department, and in the indirect way of implementing the climate actions initiatives. And there are a lot of good policies, good strategy paper that we have developed over the years, and among them like BCC, SAP, Country Investment Plan, and Bangladesh Delta Plan, Nationally Determined NDC reports, and the Mujib Prosperity Plan and NAP. And if you see this table, that you will see that there are every policies and every strategy paper has their own focus area. So sometimes, and they have estimated different types of financial requirements to implementing this type of activities. So in doing so, that it has been criticized sometimes that there are lack of coordination within this type of, there are a lot of policies, activities, strategy paper is there, but we need some coordination effort to implement this type of policies and initiatives. And if you see that the climate relevant allocation across the, the strategy paper, there are some of the thematic areas that has been identified for the financial, allocation. And if you see that most of the financial allotment is required for the food security, social protection, and health. And the second is for the comprehensive disaster management, for the infrastructure, which is very much connected with the disaster management, for research and knowledge management, mitigation and low carbon development, capacity building, and institutional strengthening. So they have identified different sectors that which sector needs this amount of, financial allocation. And then I just want to give a quick look on the, the budget that has been proposed for the fiscal year 2024. We all know that 3,069 crore has been allocated from the fiscal year 2010 to 2024 for Climate Trust Fund. And this fund has been facilitated about 969 projects, and within this 721 have been completed. And Bangladesh Climate and Development Platform has been developed for the better coordination of these different types of activities that is going, implementing by various department and organization. And there are about 25 ministries and departments received this climate budget fund. And fiscal year 2023 and 24 allocated about 37,050 crore taka for climate fund, and government has allocated more 100 crore for the adaptation activities in this fiscal year, like 2024 and 25. And if we see that 3.9% of the total budget has been allocated for the climate change and water, for the impact of climate change and the water sectors. And then again, the allocation for the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change has been proposed like 1,638 crore to, to 2,071 crore. And this is actually 433 crore more than the previous year. But still, the development budget has been proposed 1,400 crore BDT, which is more than 94 crore BDT than the previous year. Still, disaster risk reduction is in one hand and people's livelihood and development in another hand. So this is very challenging for, to handling this climate change fund, because we don't know that how much and how many disaster is coming in the next year. And we all know that LED and energy saving lamp export tax has been increased in the proposed budget, which is about 10%. And also the CNG conversion kit, cylinder, and other machineries export cost has been also increased 3 to 5%. So, and there is no such incentive for the renewable energy supplier entrepreneurs. So, if we want to achieve the, the environment friendly or the climate change, climate financing in the proper way, we need proper budgeting or the proper allocation of funds in the budget. So after discussion, I would like to give some of the suggestion or the recommendations that we can discuss or we can think for the, for the future steps, that we actually need the blended financial mechanisms, and we need to ensure long-term financing mechanism, and we need to strengthen the local government organization, which is actually dealing with the adversity of the climate change, and deploy the frontier technologies involving the private sectors and NGOs in this sector. And we need to set a strategy to better mobilize the national and international climate finance. And we also need the attention required is to ensure the financial transparency and an effective monitoring system for the fund management. So with this, I would like to end my presentation here. Thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Dr. Sufia Khanum, Senior Research Fellow, BIISS, for your very detailed and comprehensive presentation, giving details on most of the aspects, particularly of financing. Now, I'd like to request Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi Hassan, Country Representative IUCN and General Secretary Bangladesh Institute of Planners, for his presentation on case studies, best practices for innovative financial mechanisms.
Thank you so much. Respected Chair, the Chairperson of BIISS, Chief Guest, Mr. Naheem Razzaq MP, Convener Climate Parliament Bangladesh and Member of Parliamentary Standing Committee of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a special guest, Professor Ainul Nishad, my fellow presenters and distinguished audience. With the discussion of the organizers, I slightly changed the topic, but I will also share the best practice examples from my experiences, because the Climate Bridge Fund presented by the previous presenter. So I was one of the, what shall I say, that initiator or founder of that fund. So I will share some experiences with all of you. So before going to the topic, we all know, but just for the setting of the context, I put here the major trajectory. Like at the moment, we are graduating from LDC. And then the target is by 2030, we will achieve the status of our upper middle income country. And by 2041, we will have the status of developed country and prosperous country by 2071. And we have the plans and roadmap for achieving that under the leadership of current government. And this process is implemented through 5-year planning cycle and annual development plan and annual development budget cycle. So before entering my topic, just putting a question mark. So shall we only focus on the budget allocated for Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change while we talk about climate resilience? So that is a question mark. And the budget allocated this year, like yesterday, the Honorable Chief Guest, you approved and declared the budget, that whole budget is 9,97,000 crore taka, including 265,000 crore annual development budget. So in Bangladesh, being one of the top most vulnerable country due to climate change, whatever we do in the name of development, it has to be risk informed. It has to be like the climate change has to be mainstreamed. So our whole budget shall be the climate budget. So until or unless we achieve or we reach that point, so I think the journey is a long way. And in this process, we know I already have shown that Bangladesh Delta Plan, Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, and National Adaptation Plan is influencing our the development pathway. So I'm really fortunate that the previous speaker already laid the foundation of the discussion. So I will skip through some of the slides, but I will focus more on some of the slides. So what is climate finance? So climate finance refers to local, national, or international financing drawn from public, private, and alternative sources of financing to support mitigation and adaptation actions for combating climate change. Even if people see the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement are the legal basis for climate finance, although the international community still could not decide the definition of climate finance. So I think I see a couple of climate finance thought leaders in this room. They are also champion negotiators. So the definition, all accepted definition of climate finance is still to be developed. And then financial assistance from parties with more financial resources to those that are less endowed and more vulnerable. So that is the philosophy of climate finance. So if we just reflect the mechanism, conference of parties like from 1992 until last COP. So the brief information is summarized in this slide. So the UNFCCC based on Rio Declaration as the combination of 27 policy, including polluters are responsible for compensatory pay. And then a formation of GEF, Global Environmental Facility, as well as the adoption of Quito Protocol, then a special climate change fund, least development countries fund, and at COP21, the adaptation fund, PPCR mechanism, as well as the GCF formation during COP16, and in COP19, the establishment of the Secretary of GCF. So these are all very detailed mechanism, and within this short time cannot be explained. And I believe we all are aware about this mechanism. And Paris Agreement for a climate change discourse is the latest one. So it is going to be expired by 2030, but it's still many things we could not decide. And then during COP21, loss and damage fund was generated and some kind of endorsement by conference of parties. So with this history, like if we focus on the climate change finance architecture, I have taken this slide from ODI. So they prepared this slide, but I found it's very structured and very informative because it's a very complex structure. So if we cannot put everything all together, it's not so easy to understand. So who are the contributors? So you see that the countries like they are also member of parties, a member of OECD and economically solvent country, but also the major polluters. So contributors are Australia, Canada, European Union, Finance, Spain, UK, so as well as some other contributors are there. And they have their implementing agencies. They channel this fund through those agencies, but they also contribute the international financial institutions created through UNFCCC, but also outside UNFCCC, there are global financial mechanisms. So through those mechanisms, climate finance is channeled, as well as the climate mitigation adaptation projects are implemented. So if we see the through UNFCCC mechanism, there is a joint implementation and CDM mechanism exclusively focusing on mitigation and targeted by for private sector. And there are also some funds like Loss and Damage Fund, Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, Global Environment Facility, LDCF, SCCF. So these funds are generated through UNFCCC mechanisms. And non-UNFCCC mechanisms, we all know that there are also many different kind of funds like Forest Fund, Amazon Fund, Climate Investment Fund, Climate Technology Fund, a Special Climate Fund. I mean, there are many different kind of windows of climate financing, and they are operating differently. So with this architecture, I mean, how this architecture works. So during the conference of parties, the negotiators, they negotiate and agree on the milestones. And following that milestones, the institutions like Green Climate Fund or Adaptation Fund established. So when these fund established, so then they start operation. How do they operate? So they finance through their accredited agencies. Sometimes they also directly fund to the government entities or to NGOs. But this mechanism is really very complex. For example, we all know about Green Climate Fund. So how this Green Climate Fund is organized, they have governing board and they have secretariat. So they have board meeting. Any country need to access this fund, they have to prepare the concept note through national designated authority. They need to submit the funding proposal. Funding proposal has to be approved by GCF board. After the approval, accredited master agreement has to be signed between accredited entity and GCF. Project specific agreement that is called funded activity agreement has to be signed between GCF and accredited entity. Only then the accredited entity can sign the agreement with government, the NDA or the Ministry of Finance of particular country. That means then the accredited entity sign the agreement with Ministry of Finance, financing agreement, grant agreement, or loan agreement, and then project-specific agreement with executing agencies. Afterwards, the implementation process starts. So, I mean, I also prepared another slide. So I'm directly going to that one. So I'm focusing on this one. So the most vulnerable people how they get benefit of this climate finance mechanism. So we have seen the international mechanism. When international mechanism reach to a point, then the national mechanism start. And at the national mechanism, at certain point, implementation process start, and then the benefit is reached to the most vulnerable people. So that's the structure, global structure and the national structure. Unfortunately, we cannot bypass the structure. So it is, I mean, if we complain, even if we cry that we are the most vulnerable people, we shall get this fund, I think this cry nobody will listen to. So we cannot bypass this structure. The structure is complex. The question is how we become smart enough to access the fund and be efficient to address the challenges on the ground. So from the right-based perspective, human rights perspective, there are some philosophical issues like the polluters shall pay. So like how funds shall be mobilized and be observed. Like number one is the polluter shall pay. And the respective capability for generating the fund shall be there. And the fund has to be new and additional. So the ODA financing shall not be renamed as climate finance. So climate finance has to be different than ODA, and it has to be new and additional. And it has to be adequate and precautionary. So from fund mobilization and fund management point of view, and then fund administration and governance point of view, transparent and accountable mechanism has to be there, and equitable representation has to be there. And fund disbursement and implementation point of view, subsidiary and national and local ownership has to be ensured. And then it has to be like timely, appropriate, do no harm, directly accessible to the most vulnerable, and gender equal. So these are the indicators or aspects for human rights dimension. So if we now just reflect on, like the first presenter already mentioned that Bangladesh already accessed 9 projects from Green Climate Fund. And if we just see the mechanism, like after global mechanism is at certain stage, the local mechanism starts. In Bangladesh case, it is Economic Relations Division. The accredited entity, they sign the agreement with Economic Relations Division, and then after signing, at certain point, DPP is approved. And when DPP approved, then respective line agencies start implementation. At certain point, like people from Paik Gasa or northern part or hilly region, they get benefit after years. Like when the project conceptualized, prepared, approved, and when it is implemented, it gone like 5 to 10 years already gone, and the reality is changed. So that is the area of improvement I see that we can also advocate, like in the conference of parties, like we have very champion negotiators. Bangladesh is also very vocal in the international forums. We can advocate, but parallelly, I mean, if we just advocate and if we just push forward, then parallelly, I mean, if we cannot access the fund from those windows, then we cannot address the challenges of the most vulnerable communities. And the major constraints for climate finance is like it is very much dominated by mitigation, although the philosophy is 50-50, 50% mitigation and 50% adaptation has to be ensured. And the developed country parties are committed to allocating US 100 million jointly per year. In reality, it is not achieved, although a couple of weeks before I saw one OECD reports that they are claiming that they already mobilized $100 billion for climate finance, although they are claiming in OECD publication, I have seen that. So there is a kind of dilemma, like how the ODA, Official Development Assistance, and climate finance is mixing up and claiming by parties. So there are challenges. There are also some recommendations, but before going to that point, so I was asked to share some of the case studies or best practice examples. So one of the best practice example is Climate Bridge Fund presented by the previous presenter. So today's special guest, Professor Ayman Nishat, was from the very beginning engaged in that process. So in my previous assignment with German Development Bank, KfW, so we initiated to set up this fund inspired from Amazon Fund. So you might know about the Amazon Fund, that there is a funding structure, and accessing the fund from that fund, the Amazon Forest is managed, so that this complex DPP or all this process not always need to follow. So I'm not showing any disrespect to the planning process of the country, but unfortunately it is lengthy, it takes time. For addressing this most vulnerable part of our society, or addressing the challenges, climate challenges, disaster challenges, biodiversity challenges, we need to develop different kind of mechanisms. And we know that in Bangladesh is also pioneer, because we have Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund. But for the civil society, for addressing the challenge of the communities, the role of civil society NGOs are very important. For that, the initiative was taken to establish Climate Bridge Fund. The idea was Germany provided 21 point something million euro as a grant, and that money has to be invested. And from the return of that investment, a small scale project to be implemented in urban slums. Because the hypothesis was climate migrants are like, who are the most vulnerable people, different part of the country, maybe for river erosion or for other reasons, they are forced to migrate. And after migration, they are living in the slums of the cities. And the question is how these people can be integrated in the city system. So that was the question. And answering those questions, the fund was established, initiated. I'm raising this question because we have very senior brokers, additional secretary for Ministry of Finance, as well as our policymakers. Still, the challenge is not solved because it is innovative. The innovative approach means at certain point it does not comply with the rules and regulation of the country, even if the purpose is good, even if there is evidences, because Foreign Donation Act does not allow any NGO to invest. So for that reason, this fund cannot be sustained. So there is a challenge still. The fund established in 2019, 2024 is still that challenge is not yet solved. So that means as policymaker in the parliament, as well as our bureaucracy, so we need to be a little bit innovative as well. Like if only the concept is innovative, our bureaucracy, our system is not that innovative, then we cannot really adopt the innovative solutions. So you see that Amazon Fund, when it was initiated, it was also a small initiative, like 15-20 million grants, and now it became a kind of $1 billion fund. So this Climate Bridge Fund could also be scaled up in that way, if we can solve this institutional challenge or the regulatory challenge, that the BRAC can invest the amount, and from the investment, the further financing to the small scale projects implemented by Bangladeshi NGOs and CBOs in the urban slums. So that's challenge still remains. And I urge that if we could also be innovative, like if we only talk about innovative concept, innovative financing mechanism, if we don't become innovative, then unfortunately we will lose. And for for meeting these challenges, like uncertain world we are experiencing and facing, an upcoming world will be more uncertain. In our processing, we need to be more innovative. So there are some numbers and mechanisms. I think my previous speaker also presented, but I'm not going to that detail because all these information are available in the internet. The point is like all the funds mentioned, so accessing those funds are challenging. So, but one cannot bypass those mechanisms. So, so that means we need to invest more on the capacity. We need to invest more on developing innovative projects, and we need to be efficient in delivery. So these are the key messages I'm putting forward. And I will also not take too long time. My last slide is for accessing international finance, we need to understand the funding mechanisms. So how adaptation fund, how global environment facility, how green climate fund functions, their governance mechanism, the priority area, investment strategy. If we understand better, then we can develop good and strong proposals. So if we cannot develop good and strong convincing proposals, we cannot convince the board members. And for preparing a funding proposal for GCF, it takes too long because we need to justify whether it is climate relevant or not. So we need to start with the present and futuristic climate risk assessment. We need to quantify the risk. And this quantification of risk to be translated into the actions, and that actions has to be captured in the proposal. And it has to be like technically sound. It has to be like financial case, business case. There shall not be any adverse impact on society, environmental and social impact assessment has to be conducted. So all these like set of document has to be prepared, and it took like more than a complete feasibility study. So I repeat, more than a complete feasibility study is required for preparing a good and a strong funding proposal targeting to any of the international financial climate financial entity. And for that, there is no other option to build institutional capacity. So I was one of the officials who were engaged from 2013, the NDA Secretariat of Government of Bangladesh. There was a recommendation, and there was also tension who will be the NDA to the Green Climate Fund between Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and Ministry of Finance. Because MOFCC claimed that we are the focal point for UNFCCC, so we shall be the secretariat to the NDA. But Government of Bangladesh, Ministry of Finance, they decided that no, ERD is mandated for managing international cooperation. So any fund coming to Bangladesh, ERD has to be mandated. I think that was a good decision. But until or unless, until now, if we assess the NDA secretariat capacity, like it was like on and off, ups and downs to the secretariat. Like at the moment, how many people are working at that secretariat? Very recently, International Climate Finance Cell has been established. So if we just go now, how many people are working there, like who understand the procedure and process, but more importantly, subject matter specialist. Only if we know the process and bureaucracy, but we don't have the subject matter specialist, we cannot do the climate risk assessment, quantify the risk, translate into the adaptation solutions. We cannot produce a good funding proposal. Even they are not developing the proposal. Proposal development is done by PKSA, PITCOL or other accredited entities, but they need to do the assessment, appraisal. So if there is no professional people there, so how this appraisal is done at the moment? So it's a question mark to all of us, including myself. So we focus less on building an institution. So as a nation, I'm talking now as a General Secretary of Bangladesh Institute of Planners. So as a nation, we don't focus on building an institution. So the NDA was selected in 2014, 2024, 10 years has been gone. So what is the capacity of NDA Secretariat and the institutional structure of the NDA? So it's a question mark to all of us. And all the funding proposal has to be aligned with national priorities. It is already there in the Delta Plan, National Adaptation Plan, Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, as well as Bangladesh Perspective Plan. So, and then the other points, I think we all are familiar about the points like leveraging, strengthening, monitoring, evaluation. In the negotiation, we need to be more vocal and a stronger role to be played. Networking and partnership, utilize technology and innovation aligned with smart Bangladesh policy. Definitely, we also need to focus on policy advocacy. In the summary, I would like to put it forward that the international financial mechanism is complex. Probably I could not clarify during my 20 minutes presentation, but there are links. When I was developing the funding proposal for Green Climate Fund in 2014, there was nothing but the website of GCF. So this GCF website is very informative. All the documents are there. I studied, I worked, Nishad sir will confirm that every day I worked until 9 or 10 p.m. At certain point, the proposal was prepared and approved by GCF. So I request all of you to go through this website. As the mechanism cannot be changed, we need to be capable, individual as well as institutions. And thank you so much.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi Hassan. Your presentation was highly informative and you have spoken elaborately on the finance structure, mechanism, landscape, and the constraints, which were information very valuable to us, and it's very thought-provoking. The last presenter will be now Dr. Muhammad Abu Yusuf, Additional Secretary, Finance Division, Ministry of Finance. He will be speaking on innovative financial mechanisms.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chair, Honorable Chief Guest, today's special guest, distinguished audience, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I think I have been invited because I work in the Ministry of Finance. Because the speaker who talked just before me, he he works in coal face with climate issues. But I do not directly work with climate change, but I take a lot of interest in climate change issues. So before I make my presentation, I would love to mention that the first two speakers have made my life easy because they have covered almost everything. So basically, I'm left with nothing. And I thought that this may happen while I was making my presentation. So I have kept few, case examples from international arena, rather than focusing on Bangladesh. But before I go for presentation, I'd like to say a few introductory observations that will make it easy for me to make presentation and to make the informed audience more informed. The first two speakers have rightly mentioned that there is a huge need for climate financing, both adaptation and mitigation. And it is rightly stated that as Bangladesh is the worst victim of climate change, actually, we need to have more adaptation finance. But unfortunately, the global climate finance landscape is very complex, and the development partners, developed countries, those who provide us with climate finance, they are more interested in mitigation. And as I work in the Ministry of Finance, I see we get a lot of proposals from development partners and so-called big development partners of Bangladesh, who are coming with budget supports and many other projects. And most of these, I can see that almost 80% is about adaptation. But we need, mitigation. But, our Honorable Prime Minister in B20 Forum has rightly mentioned that, and urged on the international community that there should be a balance between adaptation finance and mitigation finance, at least 50-50, if not more, for poor countries like ours. And it has been stated that in our NAP, National Adaptation Plan, there is an estimate that we will be requiring $230 billion between 2023 to 2050. And each year, we need an estimated $8 billion. But how much will the government can provide? And one respected presenter has rightly mentioned that last year, as a country, we have estimated that the climate relevant allocation was 37,000 crore taka. The budget that was passed last night or yesterday, in 2024-25 budget, the climate relevant allocation has been estimated to be 43,000 or to 42,000 plus. And I was involved in with the tracking of climate budget. So you see, this is not a big jump. Now the question is, we emphasize a lot about climate because climate change is an existential threat because of the extreme weather events, salinity, sea level rise, and very slow events. And we have another problem of climate induced internal migration. There are a lot of issues. So our government is very much I would say interested in to give more funding for climate change. But you also, I think you will appreciate that we have got competing priorities. We have got health, a big issue. We have got education. We have got infrastructure. We have got, social safety net and many other issues. So despite, good intentions, it is really very difficult for the government to, grant a big money for climate change causes. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to go for international financing. And my two previous speakers have very rightly and vividly mentioned that this is very complex international climate financing landscape. And the Paris Agreement and Kyoto Protocol, according to these two protocols, rich countries are legally obligated to support the poor developing countries with climate change. But you see that there is a big gap. If you see at this slide, you see there is a big gap. I have put few figures, not many. The latest figure that was published in, article published in 2024, it shows that emerging market and developing economies other than China will have to spend about $2.4 trillion a year by 2030, according to estimates by the independent high-level expert group on climate finance. And this study was commissioned by the United Nations Climate Change Conference of 2021-22. About $1 trillion. $1 trillion a year will have to come from external sources. Now, those who are in front of me, I know you are all experts in climate issues, gender issues, environmental issues, and many of them are known to me. And you are very, very expert. You know that developed countries promise that they will generate 100 billion climate finance each year. But they, I think they are yet to keep up to their promise. And there is a difference of opinion about the quantum of climate finance supported by international community. OECD 2022 report claims 83.6 billion delivered as climate finance, while Oxfam report 2018, deflated this claim figure. And why this happens, difference of opinion, because there is a lack of internationally agreed climate finance definition. And the most important thing is that loan and grant ratio is 80-20. I think this is a missing point that we often forget to point out, that we think that, okay, there are a lot of budget supports and international climate funds. Whatever we get, are we getting the climate finance as grant or loan? So far, my understanding goes, all these, even budget support also a kind of soft loan. So we have to pay interest. Maybe the rate may be a bit lower. But we are the worst sufferer of the carbon emissions emitted by industrialized developed countries. So they have not only a moral obligation, but the legal obligation. And the few funds that my predecessors have mentioned about, few international funds. If you think about GCF, till date, if I am not wrong, GCF have contributed to, as they have shown, 9 or 10 projects, and it is still, I think, less than $500 million. But accessing GCF funding is very, very complicated. My IUCN friend has rightly mentioned, and he has tried to explain the bureaucratic maze. I see Dr. Fazlur Rabbi sir. Sir is in front of me, and sir is working as the Deputy Managing Director of PKSF. He has the first-hand experience in preparing the GCF proposal. And I came to know from him that it took a lot of time. At times in big project, they have to spend maybe $1 million project to develop the project. Because you have to show the climate rationale in your project proposal, climate rationale. In COP26, I listened to a presenter from Maldives where the lady mentioned that when they went for climate funding, they were asked to substantiate that the floods that were occurring in Maldives at that time, and for which they were asking for funds. She was asked that we are asked to prove that the floods that were happening in Maldives in the last with 30 years figures, that this flood is because of the climate change. That means climate rational. You have to substantiate that the heat or the drought, the flood, whatever happens, sea level rise, extreme events, these are because of the climate. And it's not only the management people, we need to also have the technical people who will be able to capture all this data with factual figures. So what is my point? My point is that we cannot give all the money for adaptation and mitigation that we need at the moment from the government because we have competing priorities. But so we must go for international financing. We must also explore options for private sector. How can we bring private sector on the table? But private sector is all about, they will also see that this is a bankable project. This gives them some profit. Very difficult, very challenging. So that's why I have thought that I will just portray few avenues that can be considered. One is innovative financing instrument is blended financing. One presenter has rightly mentioned blended financing is a blending of many things. Blended financing is about blending between public finance and private finance, blending about loan, grant, equity. And again, within the equity, we can structure the equity to improve the risk reward profile of the investors. So I'm not going to detail it. And then we go for blue finance and blue bond. You know that the ocean captures around 31% of the, if I'm not mistaken, hydrogen, carbon dioxide. And this is the biggest sink. So if we can improve the ocean scenario by issuing blue bond proceeds, it will help us to decarbonize the maritime transport, to have low carbon aquaculture, and also to have more offshore to increase offshore renewable energy production, etc. And all the proceeds will have to be used for climate, because there is a concept, there is a difference between climate bond and commercial bond or corporate bond. Climate bond is known as the proceeds only bond. That means the money that will be generating or the financiers will be giving, that will have to be used for climate. And then climate resilience bonds and impact investment funds means the investors, the people, the community, the industrialists who really care about the planet, they care about the sustainability. They want to create an impact on the lives of common people. They care about people's quality. And the insurance solutions, we will have to really work hard on insurance solutions, especially to protect and enable nature-based solutions. We can go for parametric insurance, and I will show it in case number 2. Then pool investment funds is another concept. Biodiversity credits, we can work on that front. Climate adaptation bonds, very difficult, because when you think about adaptation, it is easy, it is possible to make some money out of mitigation projects, but very, very difficult to make money out of adaptation projects. Although in a very limited scale, there are some scope for making money in adaptation projects, like climate smart agriculture, climate smart seed varieties, and that. And then green finance has been talked about, green finance, green climate fund, etc. Innovating financing facility for climate in Asia and the Pacific. This is a multi-donor financing facility. So this is innovative in the sense that previously in conventional climate financing, we were thought about either loan or grant. But in innovative financing solution, there could be many sources, not only private firms, not only international community, not only development partners, not only government, but also we can do a lot of work within the, if you think about blended finance equity, blended finance loan, and then within the blended finance equity, there are subordinated debt, there are classes of investors, first loss investors, and then subordinated equity. That means the GCF, say for example, GCF, they will be giving fund, and they will be assuming more risk by getting a smaller return in order to attract the other participants in the project, especially the private. So development partners is mentioned, and then GEF, this is a global environmental facility. Although my previous speaker has mentioned, but GEF is a leader in blended financing. And we really need to work in, asking for blended finance. And in Bangladesh, so far, PKSF has been doing a marvelous job in, at least they have been successful in getting some big projects from GCF funding. The World Bank is nowadays, coming in different shapes with different proposals. In Bangladesh, we have got GCRD support in the Ministry of Finance, and now Bangladesh government and Ministry of Finance and World Bank, are in serious discussion at the moment to receive more budget support from, I think, Green and Climate Resilient Development, GCRD. And that GCRD will include climate aspect. So whatever money that we get at the moment, especially in the Ministry of Finance, I see in each and every project there is a climate component. And I tell my junior friends that the climate financing is a hot topic now, and you really need to work to know it. And then we have IMF, UNDP. UNDP helped us to implement a project in the finance division called IBFCR project. With the help of their project, finance division now able to track the amount of finance that are allocated to different ministries for climate cause. But like Indonesia, Vietnam, and other countries, we are yet to, in the Ministry of Finance, we are yet to develop mechanism where we can we can show differently the amount of mitigation budget and the amount of adaptation budget. And then we have got European Investment Bank, and then Team Europe, JICA. All these international sources work for, in climate finance area. Now I will very quickly, display 3 or 4 cases from other countries, from international scenario. These are not from Bangladesh, but I have put this just to help my climate colleagues to study these and then design our own projects. Because although the international climate landscape is very complex, as one respected guest has mentioned, that there is no scope to bypass. We have to increase our capacity building. Especially, we have to give a strong argument that the project that we are proposing, this is climate relevant, this is climate rational. Otherwise, it will not be able to access fund. And that's why we need to know more about climate issues and climate concepts. Aquafundo, this is a water fund in Peru, Lima. There are 3 cities in Peru, and Peru, Peru is historically a country suffering from serious drought. They have got very little rain, so they suffer from water. And now they have developed a fund called Water Fund back in 2010, and in this water fund, Peruvian government is also getting funding from other international agencies, including JEP and other, and Climate Policy Initiative. So with the seed money and the other 4 sources of fund, as I have shown you, they have got membership fee, grant, donations, and their own money. They invest this money for water security and water solution. And the good thing is that this Aquafundo is entitled to issue donation certificate, so they get tax exemption. So if any company contribute to that fund, they will be given a donation certificate. On the basis of donation certificate, they will get some tax benefits. So this is at least a little bit of incentive for the private sector to contribute and join this fund. Now, case number 2 is it is about insurance to protect and enable nature-based solutions, hurricane cover Mexico. So this insurance covers coral reef, hurricane cover Mexico. That is the insurable interest here is coral reef. So it has been shown that if coral reef can be maintained or it can be protected, corals, then it helps to reduce the power of wave surges, and also it lessens the power of storms, and as a consequence, reducing damages on the land, on the beach, on property and people. So if you see, if because of this insurance, if the property, beach and beach is protected, then more tourists are attracted to those beaches. And what they have done, they are also getting some money from tourists. The another case is, it is about Prince Hendrik Sand Dike project in the Netherlands. This is another project. These are all adaptation projects. So This is also a case of de-risking by insurance mechanism. I'm not going to detail this. You will have a look at later on. And blue bonds case. Nowadays, it's not only green bonds. We are also having a new concept called blue bond. It's basically a green aspect. There is a green aspect in the blue bonds. Blue bond proceeds we basically use for protecting marine resources, because the ocean acidification is there. That is the biggest climate sink, and that also captures a lot of carbon dioxide. So the objective of blue bond is to spend money for ocean resources. But one thing that we need to understand is that actually these are all projects. With the projects, they attach climate or environmental issues, and these are process only bonds. That means the bond money they will be using their project. For example, they will be using the bond money for the profitable RMG sector, but that RMG sector has to prove that they are, they care about planet, they care about sustainability, and they are spending money to reduce wastage, to reduce their emission, having clean, clean power equipment, latest machinery, etc. The case number 3 is all about blue bonds for the third Southwest Indian Ocean Fisheries Governance. It is a shared growth project, and this is financed by blended financing. This is a unique blending of JEF non-grant resources with grant resources. So there is a portion of grant, there is a portion of non-grant. And when we mix together, these are blended financing. Blended financing basically helps to reduce the cost of capital and to attract private sector. Number 4 is GF NGI blended finance. This is another blended finance case. You know that Global Environmental Facility is a pioneer since its inception in implementing the concept of blended finance, and they have allocated $136 million in JEF 7. In JEF 6, it was 122.6 million. So JEF provided this money for projects. Of course, there are co-financing from other contributors. And the initial list of non-grant instruments of JEF is basically debt in the form of concessional debt, subordinate debt. The debt rate is poor and they'll be given later. Then risk mitigation products like guarantee, credit guarantee, it could be first loss guarantee, and then again equity instruments. So I am at the very last leg of my presentation. This is a case from Africa, Moringa Agroforestry Fund for Africa. This is all about land management. The fund will invest, you see, these are all will. That means these funds are being developed and implemented. Climate financing is an evolving subject. These fund or this case doesn't have an experience of 10 years or 5 years. These are being, proposed and implemented at the moment. So we can go through these cases in detail. As one speaker said, that we must increase our capacity to know how many, funds, how many climate funds are there in the world. I think we don't know. There are many, by many names: sustainability linked bonds, green bonds, blue bonds, climate, special bond, special fund. So we need to at least know the destination or the funds and equities entities from whom we can approach with climate proposals. Now you see, there is a hope. This is the slide that shows some hope that is still, despite all these bleak pictures, there are we got number of commitments in blended finance from 2017 to 2022. You see, Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation, Germany, European Development Finance Institutions, they committed 9 commitments. United Kingdom, Foreign Commonwealth and Development, 10 commitments. Canadian Climate Fund for the private sector, 14 commitments. Japan International Cooperation Agency, 16. ZEP, 19. Clean Technology Fund, 21. Green Climate Fund, 32. USAID, 39. Private Infrastructure Development Group. Now, before I conclude, I need to mention one thing from the Paris Agreement, where it has been clearly mentioned that the common but differentiated responsibilities. I'm very happy to see that Dr. Ainul Nishad sir is here. I always, learn from sir and also Dr. Fazlur Rabbi. Common but differentiated responsibility. That means climate is a concern for all. There is a case of planetarium overshooting. This is a concern for all. United Nations Mahasachiv has actually mentioned that this is an existential threat. So this is a common concern, but the responsibility is differentiated. That means the developed countries, developed communities must bear the responsibility to support climate victim countries. And there must not be any, in climate projects or in green projects, there must not be any greenwashing. So common but differentiated responsibilities, we have to keep this in our mind. We have to, make these points in international arena. And unfortunately, the $100 billion promise is yet to fulfill. And one vital thing, that is the climate finance, no definition as yet. So we must emphasize on additionality, new and additionality. That is very, very important. We must be careful that the climate finance, by the name climate finance that they are giving us, that is not repackaged as part of their development, assistance, or that we have to be careful whether this is at all additional. That is very important. So before I conclude, thank you very much, Bis, for inviting me. My first and last point will be, we cannot, bypass the fiduciary aspect, fiduciary requirement of JEP or GCF. We cannot bypass the requirement that the proposal must substantiate that the event or claim for which we are claiming money, that has been happened because of climate. We must have to have the ability to relate and substantiate. So we need to increase our capacity. We need to be more aware about the grave consequences, would-be consequences of climate. This year you have seen that we have been suffering from serious heat wave. So I think this is a very timely organized initiative. I thank BIS for organizing this one. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abu Yusuf. You have covered the international aspect of climate financing and raised very important matter of climate funding mechanism. That is very important, and one remark of yours has really struck us, that is the complication and difficulties of accessing climate fund and the expertise needed. So definitely we are thinking in that line, and for that BIISS in another event will be holding a workshop on accessing climate financing, and we would like to see how that can benefit us. Thank you indeed for highlighting that. So now we have come to the segment of open discussion, and we have some interest from the floor, and for that I'd like to request those who will be doing the intervention to be very brief and precise. And if you have questions, then after that, we'll also go to the panelists for their remarks and comments and answers. So first of all, I have some names, and I'd first like to give the floor to Dr. Fazlur Rabbi Sadek Ahmed, DMD PKSF. Dr. Fazlur Rabbi, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chief Guest, Special Guest, and distinguished panelists and other participants. Actually, I'd like to speak later on, but thank you for inviting me to say. In fact, the three speakers, the three panelists already say detailed about the issues of climate finance. In my perspective, in a global and national perspective, actually, a few issues are important, I think. One thing actually in international level, UNFCCC level, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, money, finance which flows from developed to developing country, that is called climate finance for international level. But others, whatever we spend for climate change mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage, that we call the climate finance. But the speakers, whatever you said, Dr. Yusuf and others, there is no agreed definition of climate finance. That's why the calculation of climate change, climate finance is variable. For example, in OECD, they said it is 83 billion, and as Dr. Yusuf said, and Oxfam said it is around 20 billion. One thing it is happening, although it's sometimes we say it is unethical or it should not be normal. The double counting or duplication is very common when we accounting international climate finance. That is what happen. That's why we use two terms in climate finance. It is called, one is new. That means climate finance should not be declared more than one time. And additional, it should be beyond the ODA, official development assistance. But what is happening practically, when you calculate, it is not new always, it is not additional always. So it is variable 20 billion to 80 billion. This one perspective. And in global scale, we already mentioned in the last Dubai conference, it said global level, we need around 4 to 5 trillion USD to address all the climate change issues. For example, adaptation, mitigation laws. It is huge money. And as the speaker said, from 2010, it was decided that from 2020, $100 billion will be generated, will be dispersed per year. It is not fixed, but now there is a discussion in the UN level that from 2025, it will be changed. That we call it NCQG, New Collectivied Quantified Goal on Climate Finance. What is in the floor, in the just concluded meeting in German, I was there in climate finance discussion. In the table, the developing countries put the number, it is 1.3 trillion USD per year. But problem not only quantity, it's actually a qualitative aspect, as Mr. Mehdi said already, that in Article 9.4 Paris Agreement said that adaptation finance should be grant-based. But around 70% of the adaptation fund is loan. And ironically, most of the funding is loan and it's market rate. So that is a big question. If it is its investment, if it is business, it is profit generating, profit making issue, then why should we tell it climate finance? So in international level, both quantity and quality, both are very important. Particularly in Article 11 of the UNFCCC, it said climate finance should be grant and concessional loan. And for adaptation and loss and damage, it should be grant basis. Another important very issues that our chief guest is here, parliament member, and maybe in the COP level, he could raise the issue. Our environment minister actually very vocal on that. In fact, if it is loan and market rate, what Oxfam said, it is creating new debt crisis for South Asian and African countries. So it is not helping at all, rather it making some kind of crisis to the economy. That's one issue. And another issue actually, that we have some UNFCCC funding window. For example, Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, Least Developed Countries Fund, special. We like that fund because it has governing body and the government takes the decision. We have representative, for example, there is some member from LDC group, we can say our concern. But out of 100 billion, only 1 to 2% fund goes to that windows. Because on that fund, the developed country should not have any kind of authority. they prefer bilateral financing. And what happens on that? When it is bilateral, then the quality of funding sometimes drastically reduced because it's bilateral. The recipient always do not have the enough bargaining capacity because they need money. That's why the quality of sometimes decrease. And another issue I have to raise, actually, I'm taking so long time. In fact, so we are another issue is the access. Particularly adaptation, we are vulnerable country. We need adaptation financing. Globally, adaptation financing around is 10%. Supposed to be around 50%, 10%, because for getting adaptation finance, it's more time consuming. We have to make the climate rational, flood, drought, what is it linked to the climate change. But mitigation to some extent easy. Just to make it, it will reduce the carbon dioxide emission like that. So access, time consuming, at least the vulnerable country actually at the end of the day, they are sufferer. So in the coming Baku conference in Azerbaijan, there it already declared by UNFCCC, it will be finance COP. And there is a decision on NCQG. That means what money will flow from 2025 to 2030, and it will be up to 2,100, but 5 years term, it will be increased again. But we are not only asking for the quantity, we are asking for quality, access, and preferential treatment for the vulnerable countries. And in fact, lots of other issues, but I think maybe some kind of breakthrough in the Baku conference. But so far, I follow the negotiation. The developed countries are very adamant not to agree on the definition of climate finance. That is a big challenge. So thank you very much to give me opportunity to say something on climate finance.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I now give the floor to Ms. Farah Kabir, Country Director, Action Aid.
Thank you very much. All protocols maintained. I think the presenters, the three speakers have eloquently presented the issue of climate finance. Climate finance is not something in an absence of geopolitics or global politics. And we know that those of you who were in Bonn, there was a lot of discussions. The rich countries had a lot of conversations, but they did not agree. We have already seen that the 100 billion that was supposed to come annually has not been met. And it is the present arrangement ends in 2025. So I know Fazli Rabbi just mentioned that there's a new arrangement in the making. But whether it's the old arrangement or the new arrangement, so far the trend has been in all the last 2 decades is finance is something on which the developing countries are dragging their leg. They do not wish to fund. But these same countries are funding, the banks, countries are funding fossil fuel industry with trillions of dollars. So when ActionAid did a research and we came up with our global campaign, we found how trillions of dollars are being channeled to these banks and fossil fuel industries. And therefore, we know that the developed countries do not have a scarcity of funding. It's an issue of political commitment and how they perceive their own geopolitics and interests. So we would like to say that Bangladesh has, since 2008, made many efforts, attempts, and there was a presentation by all the three speakers of how we progressed. And we've all been part of it. Mehdi was talking about sending up the Green Fund and accessing them. We spent lots of hours trying to help Bangladesh government, the finance ministry, ERD develop even indicators. So that intentions are all there. But what we would like to talk about is that we need to do more advocacy and lobbying. We have to hold these countries accountable. You kept mentioning, Mehdi, that we cannot bypass the structure and the architecture. The architecture and the structure is not set up for vulnerable countries. It is not set up for people, or it does not address the power inequalities. So are we going to continue accepting these inequalities and then talk about addressing climate change? Is something that needs to be addressed, and we have to come together. This is why we have the LCD group, we have the vulnerable forums, and even as a country, I think we can put some stress on that. So we would like to ask that developing countries can raise the $1 trillion for climate action by increasing the tax to GDP ratios by 4% just points, using progressive tax measures to address the tax avoidance and target the wealthiest corporations and individuals. So the 10% in the wealthiest countries, the 1% corporates in the wealthiest countries, they can be held accountable, and it is possible. Now, why would they do it? Because climate change is now a climate crisis. It impacts everyone. If the corporate sector has a false sense of comfort that their businesses, their profits are insured, it's not going to happen. We all know everyone is impacted. Recently, I was talking to a multinational corporation, and they were saying due to shortage of water stress, their production cost is going up. If their production cost goes up, the customers may not continue purchasing. And if they don't purchase then or buy, even with an increase in purchasing power, will that corporation be able to sell the product? So similarly, there can be many examples. And I think this is where we have to ensure that the private sector gets the message that no one is safe unless we are all safe. Climate change does actually now impacts on everyone. Of course, we know the global rich have mechanism and tools to protect themselves better than we in the vulnerable countries, but I don't think they are out and beyond the climate crisis. And lastly, I think that the tendency of giving these funds are like they are doing a charity. They're doing somebody a favor. They're not. Because these countries, developed countries, are coming to Asia, which has the highest number of population and does have an increased purchasing power, and they want to do trade. They've changed trade for aid, and now we know our ODA is a very small % of a total budget. But all these developed partners and countries are interested to come to Bangladesh and do our infrastructure projects, come and sell their products here, want all the businesses. So let's make them accountable as well. Thank you.
Thank you indeed for raising some very interesting points. And politics is always there. Climate politics is like that. And the points you have mentioned are really matters to consider in the climate meetings and conferences. Next intervention will be from Sadia Jahan Rothi, Director, Eco Network. You have the floor, madam. I think she's not available now. The floor goes to Rear Admiral Awal, former ambassador and Assistant Chief of Naval Staff. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. I'd like to thank our speakers particularly for me. I was listening to UN Secretary General a couple of days back. He was giving his statements about the progress of SDG, which is closely linked with the climate mitigation and issues. So he was quite frustrated. I could not really understand that what is the extent of the frustration with the presentation. Now I understand that why he was sounding so bad. So you mentioned about the three mechanisms, global mechanisms. SDG, progress, dismal low, 17%, only 6 years left. And it's a matter of satisfaction that Bangladesh is doing good. I was wondering why Bangladesh has done well in meeting SDG. Thank you, madam, for clarifying that. Our linking up to the, the various projects like the thing. And then UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. The speakers have talked on that. The Paris Conference, that's the most worrying part, because that's the global framework for addressing this problem. And now the problem is that you see as per the Paris Agreement, by 2050, the greenhouse emission is supposed to be contained to 45%. And by the turn of the century, it has to be net zero. The latest data shows that by 2030, all the 195 parties of the Paris Agreement, their cumulative plan, it shows that there will be 9% increase of greenhouse emission. What Ms. Farah Kabir has mentioned about the investment in the fossil fuel sector. So you can imagine what is happening, 45% and with the present ongoing trend, it will be not only now it is 1.1 or 1.2 degrees centigrade post-industrial level, to bring it down to 1.5 by the turn of the century. It's going to be 3 degrees. And the thing is that we'll sink, we'll go, but the heartland of the capitalist world, and New York also will sink. Now I would request our all advocates, climate advocates, please, you impress upon the developed countries that for their survival, they have to do this climate financing. And my question to the panel is that, it has been mentioned that in future, our budgeting, our every thought process should be on blended with the climate vulnerability. The budgeting or any proposal for foreign loans or everything. So there's the requirement the speaker has mentioned of the subject specialist involvement. Now, how we are going to do that? We don't have it now. How we are going to do that? Because if we don't do that, we are not going to get any money. That's the red herring. So I would like to hear that how that will be addressed. Other thing is that I follow the SDG 14, the life below water. No, this it is not even touched. The water is forgotten, but this water is keeping us alive. 50% of the carbon dioxide, it is a carbon sink. The oxygen comes from here, and it is a dismal situation in the ocean areas. We have a Bay of Bengal, large marine ecosystem consisting of all our 8 countries in the region, Southeast Asia and South Asia, 8 countries together, 6.2 square kilometer of area. That needs protection. There is no word on that. So is there any thought on that, what is happening to our SDG 14 aspect? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker from the floor is Mr. Ishaq Ilahi. Mr. Ishaq Ilahi. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Basically, I have some queries for the panel, and which also maybe the special guest can address. One is I just came to know first time that there is something known as Amazon Fund. And you said that starting from few millions, now it has become $1 billion, project. So can we have something like this Sundarban Fund, where both Bangladesh and India can work together? And because the Sundarban itself is under danger and also acts as a huge deterrent to the climate threat. So is there any possibility of working on that? Also, I have a query on, now we are going for the Tista project. You see, huge investment will be needed there. And it definitely has a climate impact because people have been displaced, people have been turned into poor. So while doing this, can we bring in these climate considerations and attract funds from all these sources that you mentioned, including the IMF, World Bank and all to bring up. And same thing goes to the, when we are in the next year, we'll be talking about the Ganges water renewal of the treaty. Can we bring in this, because already our southern Bangladesh is facing this salinity and all that. So can we bring out some projects on that areas where climate fund will be available to Bangladesh? And of course, we'll be looking for to the grant as much as possible. So these three issues I'm just trying to put forward to the panel and also the special guest, if they can address. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Air Commodore Retired Ishfaq Ilahi. The next intervention is from Excellency Sheila Pillai. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to BIISS for organizing this very important seminar. I just have two short points to make. First of all, I picked up on something that I think Mr. Sheikh Mohammed from IUCN made in his last slide on recommendations, and he mentioned a building institutional capacity, which is quite critical. And as part of Singapore's efforts to contribute to building a sustainable future, we actually have under the Singapore Cooperation Program a number of courses specifically on understanding climate financing, preparing sustainability related financial reporting and things like that. There's one course in January, which I think was too late, but there is an upcoming one on green financing, which will be in September. So very happy to include any interested officials from the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Environment, but you need to coordinate with me quickly because the closing date is 26th June. But in the pipeline, there are many other courses related to green finance and climate change, which I'll keep the ministries informed of. The other point is, I think Additional Secretary Finance made this interesting point about a number of climate funds and the destination of the funds, who to approach with proposals and all that. But just to add, I think in December at COPS, Singapore announced that we will also launch a new blended finance initiative known as Financing Asia's Transition Partnership, or FAST-P. And this one, we will mobilize $5 billion, but it is to specifically support marginally bankable climate-funded focused projects in Asia. So perhaps when this fund is ready, Bangladesh can look at this because this is a very Asia-focused funding. Thank you.
Well noted. Thank you very much. And I request the students who are here, we have come here with a lot of interest to listen to us. I'd like to hear from them. Is there any interest? I discussed at the beginning with the students who expressed interest in making questions or comments. Okay, I see no interest. Oh yeah, on the right side. Yes, please introduce yourself and intervene.
Good afternoon, and okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I am Khanis Fatima. I just completed my master's in climate science and solution from United States of America. And my question was, it's in fact a very interesting session. My question was that did Bangladesh already prioritize which funded they will target and how they will develop the capacity of the institutions to achieve those funds.
Thank you. Very good question. Any more interest? We see none. So can we go back to the panelists for their comments and answers to the questions? This.
Thank you. There was a specific questions towards me, so that's why I'm taking the advantage of responding. The Sundarbans Fund, I think, fantastic idea, sir. So you can immediately start discussion with Her Excellency from Singapore. Like, if she is willing to provide the fund, IUCN will be very happy to host that fund. So I just make the declaration with my authority as CR. So with this light note, I would like to mention that this Amazon Fund, it was originated as a small fund, but it grown like a very big fund. And with that, in inspiration, the Climate Bridge Fund was initiated, because Germany was also one of the founder of the Amazon Fund. So that was the origination that the concept came to Bangladesh to start the Climate Bridge Fund. But definitely for biodiversity and forest management, specifically for Sundarban, there are a lot to do. Many things are happening, including World Bank, the transboundary Sundarbans management. There is one MOU between Bangladesh and India. Target is to form the commission. I think the leaders, they will make final call how this, like, joint river commission, like how Sundarban commission can be established. Also, Asian Development Bank, JICA, French Development Agency. So all of them are planning upcoming projects. IUCN is very much engaged, and we'll be very happy to support all the initiatives. So there is one. Regarding Tista, I think it is very much political project. I request our chief guest and a special guest is the international water expert. He was long-serving Joint River Commission member, so I request him to address these points. I don't dare to talk on those points in front of him. He was also longest-serving country representative of IUCN, so my predecessor. So from that point of view, I have a special request him to address this point. And the global mechanisms is not fit for purpose. I agree with you, Farapa, but we need to advocate for that, not deprioritizing. But if we only keep doing that without preparing good projects, probably we will lose the opportunity. So that was my point. So that was my point I wanted to make. And then, sir, your point, like subject matter specialist, I understood that you are from Bangladesh Navy. So when a young chiefs appointed as Bangladesh Navy, Bangladesh government invested a lot on you, and you became like assistant chief of Bangladesh Navy. So that's the way to develop the institution. So that means in Bangladesh, formal institution and bureaucracy, we need to redesign it, to recruit different disciplinary professional background people, because the things are changing. And we are living in a kind of uncertain world. So we also need to redesign, reimagine our bureaucracy, like how to bring different professionals like urban and regional planners, climate scientists, and then oceanographer, or I mean, there are many different new subjects are now offered from the university. Like many different universities are offering many different new subjects, meeting the demand. But you know that reforming Bangladeshi bureaucracy is a long story. Like ultimately, it takes too long time to appoint a new professional at NDA secretary until or unless organogram is not approved by competent authority. It has to go through line ministry, Ministry of Public Administration, legal vetting, Ministry of Finance, ultimately gazette notification, and then only recruitment can start. So it's a long story. But immediately what we can take support of organizations like ActionAid, IUCN, or whoever is active in Bangladesh, even through Climate Parliament, we can mobilize support and then immediately supporting our institute. We're actually doing that. We are doing that, but we can intensify those points. So thank you so much.
All right, we have come to this part of the program. Now, we are requesting our respected special guest, Dr. Ainul Nishat, to go to the rostrum for his remarks. Dr. Ainul Nishat.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Definitely it is afternoon. And when I was invited, actually a few days back, there was another workshop in this room on climate finance. And on that day, the point was raised that, am I ready to talk about climate finance and other issues related to climate change? I said yes. So I'm glad that the organizers have remembered me, because that day I made certain comments, possibly they were surprised, because many of us do not keep track what is going on in the world. Fazli Rabbi Sadiq Ahmed has just come back from Bonn, and that was the 60th meeting of SAPSTA and SBI. All countries of the world are members, are active members of the process by which decisions on climate change are taken, progress is reviewed, and fresh decisions are taken. And they meet 2 times every year. 198 parties. I didn't use the word countries, because all countries are members of the UNFCCC process or climate change related to debate or dialogue. But besides the sovereign countries, there are few countries or few entities, they are also recognized as partners. So we all are called parties, and there are 198 parties as of today. Like Palestine is a party, European Union is a party, and the small Polynesian islands, which are not sovereign states, but they have some kind of status. The reason I'm saying the world is moving very fast, and there is no doubt in the minds of the national leaders of these 198 countries or parties that climate change is a science fiction. It is happening today. As I talk, a big cyclone is attacking the Caribbean islands, and it may go up to USA. It's called, they call it Hurricane Beryl. B means, it starts with the alphabet B, means this is the first big event of this particular year. And the Americans are very surprised at this particular cyclone. Why? Statistically, this type of cyclone is supposed to affect the Caribbean island and USA in second week of August, and it has come on the first week of July. Actually, this is what is happening all over the world. And I was reading some of the reports that is coming out from that particular cyclone. This word that they have used, that along with the whole world, terrestrial part, the oceans are also getting warm, is becoming warmer. And this temperature, the hot water, is like the fuel and energy to the cyclones. This year, they are projected on the Atlantic coast, there could be 15 to 25 cyclonic events. That could be extrapolated to Bangladesh coast. Similar things could happen in Indian Ocean. Last year, we had 5 big cyclones. One had hit Andamans, one came to Teknaf and Myanmar. The other 3 went to Andhra province and southern India. We are very lucky by a whisker, because this could have come to Bangladesh. A cyclone had happened few days back, and there is a depression in Bay of Bengal, and the result would be for next 5 days, there could be heavy rainfall. Are we prepared for it? Answer is no. Why do I say it? There could be short duration heavy rainfall over the cities all over Bangladesh. In 2020, Rangpur faced 450 millimeters of rainfall one day. In 21, they faced 250 millimeters of rainfall in one day. Now, this 450 and 250 may not mean anything to you, but let me translate into physical world. If we have 250 millimeters of rainfall, this floor would be underwater. Are we ready for it? Is our drainage system ready for it? We have excellent documents on climate change. The NAP document, National Adaptation Plan, has identified 14 hazards. We are facing hailstorms. Size of the hail is that of a cricket ball. We are having more lightnings. We are facing drought. When did we have the last drought? Last year. And year before that. And this year the rain started about 7-8 days earlier than the schedule starting date of monsoon. So certain year would be regular under the climatic pattern, but most of the time it would be different. The intensity and frequency of natural disasters are going to increase. Let us be careful about this. So having said that, the whole world is debating around, I would use the word, 8 building blocks. First is mitigation, cut down the greenhouse gases. We are not responsible for the global warming, and we have been more or less exempted from carrying out mitigation activities. But our Prime Minister has instructed the people who developed, I am one of them, the nationally determined commitments. Now, mind the word nationally determined commitments. We are sovereign country, so outside world cannot dictate and tell us that do this, do that, and cut down greenhouse gases. So every country must produce their own commitment. So Bangladesh has committed to cut down 6% by 2030 on our own, and if technology and finance is available, another 17-18%. And Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, which was prepared by international consultant, they committed 40%. I do not know how they propose to achieve it. And in 1992, the world was divided into 2 blocks. Annex 1, which is the rich countries, their list is their membership of OECD is the place where they belong. They're the rich countries. The other countries are called non-Annex 1 country. In 2015, when Paris Agreement was finalized and signed, the world was divided into 3 blocks. Rich countries, it is their duty to do mitigation and control greenhouse gas emissions so that the temperature would not go up as high as it is predicted now. The second group is advanced countries among developing countries. And that is the fight going on right now. The rich countries are arguing that the list of the rich countries or Annex 1 countries must be revised because the main emitters are no longer the rich countries of European Union or USA. They are China and India and South Korea and Singapore and Brazil and Egypt and countries like that. We are in the third block, being LDC countries, and we are exempted as of now. The second focus is on adaptation. On adaptation, the vulnerability has been assessed. A few days back, I saw the latest result. We are 8th in the serial. We could have been the most vulnerable country in the world, but the way it is calculated, that makes the difference. The number of people dying or death is one of the major factors. And when the data of 1991 cyclone is left out, our rank from worst country in the world, it ranks now 8th out of 198 countries. So having said that, the third, for us, adaptation is the main solution or main approach. Few days back, President Macron came to Bangladesh. And when he left, he advised us, focus on adaptation and focus on biodiversity conservation. Possibly, I was not there, but possibly I can gas by reading newspapers. We said we need money. And he committed 1 billion euro. Are we ready to receive 1 billion euro? What is our plan? I don't know. I asked few people, I didn't get any answer. So it will be dictated by the French. Why? We should be able to say where we are going to utilize the money. So after mitigation and adaptation, the finance is the big or the most important issue debated worldwide. And as I said, Fazlur Rabbi Sadek Ahmed was present in the meeting completed 2 weeks back. The world refused to come and make commitment about global finance. The world refused, the developed countries refused to carry out a stock taking, which was an earlier decision. What is going to be the next, the level of temperature in coming future. The present calculations show that it could be 3.7 degree. If the temperature exceeds 2 degree, then the whole world would have severe food shortage. The food shortage we had in 2017 after the floods in Sylhet in the months of March and April, we have not still recovered from that. The Agriculture Ministry is saying we are producing enough from this year. Food Ministry is saying, no, we need to import 4.5 to around 5 million metric ton. Do you understand what is 5 million metric ton? In 1947, our total food grain production was 5 million metric ton. So that is the big damage. The fourth area where the world is debating is capacity building. I must admit, we do not have the capacity. The research center where I belong to, part of BRAC University, with Planning Commission, we have conducted at least 30 training programs for mid-level to senior officials. They paid attention in the training program, but when they went back to their respective departments or ministries, have they been able to apply their knowledge in the national planning process? Answer is no. The government, each department has their rule book, and they are controlled by the rule book. That is why in 2009, when we completed the BCC SAP, Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan, under the theme 6, we recommended that, and which was adopted by the cabinet, that each ministry must revise their agenda, must revise their where they should concentrate. The reason is there cannot be separate projects for climate change ministry to look after climate change. It must be integral part of all activities of all departments and all ministries, because climate change is going to impact and affect everything. But then comes transparency mechanism, technology transfer. World is sitting with technology and trying to help us, but we have a problem. We have to clear the DG environment because he holds the clearance certificate. Similarly on finance, if we want to finance from GCF, Green Climate Fund, which has been elaborated by the previous 3 speakers, the main bottleneck is with ERD, because Secretary ERD is the person who would clear it, and they don't have regular meeting. On GEF, it is Ministry of Environment, but that's a relatively small fund compared to GCF. The next point is again very interesting, compliance mechanism. Is Bangladesh ready? Answer is no. Again, no. In 2015, it was clearly stated in Paris Agreement. It is embodied in the Paris Agreement. Whatever you get the finance or technology or whatever support from the world, you must be compliant. And that includes 7 conditions. It must be done in a transparent manner. There must be accountability. There must be partnership with private sector, and inclusiveness must be proved. But the other 3 conditions are MRV, measurable, reportable, and verifiable. MRV. And measure, report, and verification should be done through a process called theory of change. In Bangladesh, we do logical framework analysis, LFA. I have pleaded with the secretaries, IMED, that please change it to theory of change. Otherwise, we will not get any money. We are not ready. I even pleaded with the previous planning minister that please change your status and policy. So point I'm trying, and the other two areas are long-term goal and loss and damage. So in long-term goal, the goal is to control the temperature within 2 degrees, and I'm sure it is not going to happen. So we must be prepared and we must be ready. And we know all the adverse impacts of climate change that are going to happen. We have listed 14 hazards and we have listed 11 areas which needs special attention. I will just make 2-3 points very quickly. Fund is ready, available. Yes, the Globe promised $100 billion every year. And they claim so far they have given us $100+ billion. Our calculations are much lower. But my point is, whatever money is available, are you ready to receive it and utilize it? Answer is no. They have various conditions. They will not give us grants. They are pushing for loan, but that loan is at 0.75%, very soft loan. So we should rush for it. So, and my final point I want to make is the global negotiation process. The negotiation process is very complex. This all 198 parties must agree to every issue. There is no voting. There is no voting. It's not easy. So therefore, it is done on group basis. So there are 4 groups: European Union, Umbrella Group, USA and other rich countries, Integrity Group, some neutral countries like Switzerland and Norway, and the third is G77 and China. Under G77 and China, as of today, we are following LDC group, least developed country. We will not belong to that group in 3-4 years' time. We should immediately prepare our position. One of the groups, very powerful group, is AOCs, Small Island Developing State. Another powerful group is called BASIC Group. Brazil, India, South Africa, China. India and China may be fighting on various issues, but they're friends, very close friends in the climate change arena. And you insert Russia, it becomes BRICS. So Bangladesh is trying to join BRICS. Why not BASIC? And there is another group called LMDC, Like-Minded Developing Countries. And that group dominates the discussion. And there, Pakistan and India are the closest friend. India and China are the closest friend. They gather together and fight for issues related to climate change. I believe time has come. Bangladesh should assess their position in the global level. Possibly 2 options are there. One, the countries which are active inside SAARC and small countries like Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka can form a negotiation bloc, or I would even prefer them to join BASIC and LMDC, because our voices must be heard. You cannot speak on your own. You need to, through a particular group, you must raise your voice. So let me close here. Climate change finance does not mean money for environment ministry or climate change ministry. Every ministry, whatever they do, must be filtered through climate change. I was involved in preparation of the NAP document. I talked to virtually almost all the ministries, all the departments from the top-down approach, and about 1,000 people on the bottom-up approach. Most of the departments and ministries give me the impression, oh, this is not my problem. It's the problem of agriculture ministry, it's the problem of water ministry, it's the problem of health ministry, it's the problem of local government ministry. The group of people from which I receive maximum positive support, I want to say that today, is the livestock ministry. Agriculture thought, what can you say without talking about agriculture? We did talk about agriculture. Now they are thinking of developing a separate NAP for agriculture. The other day I was invited and prepare an outline for them. But problem is, some international agencies are pushing them, develop your new agriculture NAP. Similarly, Health Ministry is also pushing for their NAP. We have enough documents in the country for making progress in managing climate change in our condition. Main problem is interministerial coordination. And for that, I need, my last statement would be not interministerial cooperation or multi-department or multidisciplinary cooperation. We need transdisciplinary cooperation, that everybody understands what is going on and everybody respects others' need and requirement. With that, let me say I have taken more time than I planned to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You have, in fact, covered all the points. All the points and your suggestions are actually voice of wisdom. And we always listen to you as avid student of climate experts like you. Thank you indeed. Now we will request our chief guest today to address the seminar. Sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to show my gratitude to BIS and its a very intelligent and very robust individuals who are working, and at this very moment of time, very timely discussion on climate resilience and finance. Honorable Chair of this session, Chairman of BIS, distinguished guests and participants, good afternoon. I want to keep my deliberation very short as I have been given the privilege of being the chief guest of the session. The distinguished panelists as well as participants haven't left me enough to give my deliberation and remarks. And the final deliberation by eminent special guest, Dr. Aini Nishad, has actually closed the session for me. So I haven't been left with much to talk about. I would just clarify myself with 2 or 3 remarks and close this session. First of all, climate emergency. We have talked about climate emergency. Bangladesh is one of the very few countries in the world in the national parliament who have declared and adopted climate emergency. So we understand the significance of climate change. Our Honorable Prime Minister was one of the few heads of states not to wait for global fundings, but rather creating our own climate change resilient funds. So we have taken initiatives in our own ways to tackle climate change, which is affecting pretty much everyone in this country. 170 million population, one of the largest population in the world. We are by far one of the most vulnerable countries in the world, as Dr. Aini Nishad has mentioned. The indicators and the frameworks in terms of assessment of how vulnerable we are, of course, makes us maybe 7th or the 8th vulnerable country, but by far, you know, the GDP loss is more or less about 2% per year. About round figure, about $1 billion is lost every year due to climate change. Not to mention the hugely impacted areas across Bangladesh where we are seeing climate migrations, heavy induced climate effects in the population. Around 50 to 56% of the population is living under high climate exposure areas in Bangladesh. So we understand the impact of it. And this session itself highlights some of the few areas. Now, going forward, I think from my end, I focus primarily on highlighting that there are 3 bigger groups of areas who need to work together in terms of finding solutions. One is the legislative body, which is national parliaments. We as legislators, we develop policies and we have oversight, so we need to be integrated into the whole process. Hence, my presence here shows the importance of it. The secondary is the executive body, which is the government agencies and other agencies, the Finance Ministry Additional Secretary, along with others who are given the responsibilities of executing, and finally the bigger portfolio, which is the stakeholders, stakeholders such as civil society, think tanks, and others. So these three groups needs to work together in finding solutions. So this is the first part that we need to highlight. The second thing that I need to look into is the mindset. Eminent participants and have highlighted that, you know, Bangladesh trying to really kind of look forward to the funds that are available globally. And these funds needs to be more or less grants and not loans, because we are entitled, because we are not the emitters of carbon dioxide, CO2s, but rather the countries who are emitting, they should be contributing and we should be receiving those things, and it should be grants. It has been highlighted. But I want to take a different note on approach towards going forward. And since the session is about going forward, we need to change our mindset and we need to think very smart and innovative ways to raise funds. When I mean that, the capital market, global capital market is massive, is absolutely massive. And some of the recommendation has come through regarding Amazon funds. Of course, you know, Bangladesh can really look into the mangrove forests, the Sundarbans and the hill tricks and across the board, the blue fund that has been there. So we really need to build partnership with global capital markets. And Ambassador of Singapore is here. Of course, Singapore is being one of the really, really robust capital market. We can take their support in terms of capacity building and collaborate. Because as far as I am concerned, we are trying to really develop green bond funds through the Ministry of Energy that is undergoing. We have also explored a couple of other such initiatives. But again, it's a good model that we can actually really look into in raising funds so that we can invest in adaptation or any other format that we can go forward with. I, of course, want to highlight a couple of the discussions that has happened here. You know, we require funds so that we can really adopt and put the money into the adaptation projects. But we lack the oversight. That is a very, very, you know, it's very clear that we lack the oversight. There's lack of transparency, efficiency in terms of implementations. This is very well known. It doesn't matter whether I am a part of the government or anywhere else, but this is very apparent. So we need to build partnership, and public-private partnership is the way forward from my understanding. So public-private partnership will and should be going forward in terms of raising even funds and oversight as well as implementations. So this is a core component that we all need to really look forward to. Institutions and the framework within the governments. Of course, for me, the two important ministries and line ministries who should be really, really advocating and really putting an effort in raising funds and mobilizing is, of course, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and the Ministry of Finance. Why I say the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change is because their core component is to tackle climate change. The government of Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina is the one who has come in and changed the name of the ministry and added climate change into the ministry. So hence, that should be the focal point. That should be the focal point. Yes, there are 21 to 26 ministries which are doing enough work, but there needs to be one ministry, and under one ministry, there needs to be one institution who is tracking and mobilizing the whole of the funds in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, because they have to deal with the financial part of it. So we do multiple projects across different ministries. Honorable Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Mr. Sabir Hossain Chaudhry, he's taken a very big initiative, which I personally, and along with my colleagues in the Parliament of in Climate Parliament Bangladesh, we are supporting heavily, is streamlining resources. Multiple projects are being financed by multiple developing agencies, and it's been replicated. So we cannot allow that to happen because resources are limited. So hence, he is trying to create a mechanism where the developing agencies and, of course, countries, they are collaborating, and there is, of course, collaboration, so that they see who is going to invest or provide funds in certain projects, so that there is no replication of it. So these are some of the very key information that needs to be taken forward. And I think replication should not happen. I think, streamlining and interested bodies needs to really collaborate so that there are impact, and there should be impact analysis going forward, because impact analysis, without impact analysis, there's no point to it. So you're mobilizing funds, but what is the outcome of it? You're really not looking into it. So impact analysis should be one of the benchmarks to this. So hence, we should really create an institution within a specialized institutions, which should have capacity building as a key component going forward, which could be even under Ministry of Planning, to be honest, because they are the ones who are actually approving those projects. So it should be a really, really core committee, which should have oversight on all climate-related fund mobilization. So that's my take from it. And even I think it was last month or month before, World Bank came out with a report. It was a very comprehensive report. I was there as well. So everyone is looking forward to working in the green space, the climate change space. And funds are available. It's just whether we are able to actually harness it. Let's be honest about it. There is bureaucracy in every department, everywhere globally. The same thing. I met the president of GCF. I spoke to her as well. She's a French lady, but she was one of the principal drafter of the Paris Agreement. And I said, it takes you 2 years, 2.5 years to mobilize. By the time you mobilize that money, the adverse effect is gone. So there's no point in you actually giving me the money. It's already 30% down on the project value. So there's no point to it. So bureaucracy will be there. So we should be very smart in terms of raising our own funds. And the global market, I think capital market is the way forward. Farah Appa said one or the other thing, which I personally also is very fond of, is about really generating funds from the wealthy groups, and it affects everyone. So there are provisions across the world where also they're all contributing towards the climate resiliency funds. So the global bigger markets and the capital markets and the private equity markets are available. We can, of course, go get those monies if we really kind of have a good framework in place. So I would just want to close my remarks. It's been a long, good 2.5-hour session, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate and show my gratitude to Ambassador AFM Gausul Azam Sharkar, who's chaired the whole session, the DG of BIS, Major General Muhammad Abu Bakr Siddiq Khan, and of course, the other panelists, my eminent colleagues and participants. Thank you so much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangla.
Thank you, sir, Honorable Chief Guest, for really making a very excellent speech and covering very important points and giving some directions as well. So, and also clarification. Thank you indeed. For the rest, I'm going to take the rest. Just for a few remarks, because there is nothing actually left for discussion anymore, because we have so much of distinguished experts and speakers who really covered all the points. Focus was climate financing and the issues, related issues, which all have been discussed and covered. One remark is that climate financing is not merely about mobilizing resources. It is also about ensuring that these resources are effectively targeted, efficiently utilized, and equitably distributed. Where we are at disadvantage, Bangladesh is not getting equitable share of it. And of course, we have difficulties in that because we are not prepared, as our special guest has highlighted. We have to develop that expertise of availing and absorbing the climate financing, which is over there. And we have to look for alternative financing sources, and the speakers and panelists have given shed good light on that, and we have come to know many of that, and we have to really look for those. And also, the question of matter of innovation that has come as very important, and also technology. These are very important points. Innovation, not only in terms of funding or blended funding and all those that has come as discussion point, but also in application, blended application of climate financing. So there we can be very careful and very judicious, and then we should look for science-based solutions of problems. There is so many new things that are coming up as research outcome. For example, we have a scientist, Dr. Abed Choudhury, innovator of Panchoprihi rice. He has spoken about many microbial solutions, and also he has developed a solution which prevents carbon emission at the source, even with the cultivation of paddy. So we have to think of these application innovations as well. So then comes the point of very important governance. That is very important. And then, in fact, in fine, what I'd like to highlight is that it is father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's resilient Bangladesh, and we are talking about climate resilience. And we are very happy that his able daughter, Honorable Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Prime Minister, she has been a climate leader in the climate politics consistently for many years. And we are confident that under her leadership and guidance, we are going to take the right course, and will do whatever is expected of us and as the country. So we are coming to the close, and in fine, I'd like to thank Honorable Chief Guest who has really contributed enormously, and who is actually leading. And then Honorable Special Guest for really your great suggestions and the very important points that we need to be careful and prepared. And thanks to all the panelists and discussants, and particularly also from the floor, because they have also made very valuable contribution. And thank you all for participation. the colleagues and colleagues, including BIISS. Thank you.
Thank you all. At this stage, I would like to request our honorable chief guest to receive a memento from the respected chairman, sir, and director general, sir. I would also like to request our honorable chief guest, special guest, and the panelists to join us for a photo session.